Hello and welcome back to the World Championship in Through the Ages. In the first game of the group that you saw in the last video, I sadly only finished at the third position, meaning that now in the second four-player game that we are going to take a look at today, it would be quite important to maybe get a better result in, to keep good chances for the first place alive, and to not be under too much pressure going into the 3 and 2-player games. And yeah, without further ado, we are going to take a look at the game. In this game, I'm playing in the third position, and first of all, we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And we can see that there's some lab and science energy in H3 with Steve Jobs, Marie Curie, and Sid Meier. There is the spaceflight, but no Manhattan Project. We have Churchill for the military, but there's no Gandhi. We have Pierre, who is important, but no internet. We have Mandela. We have the Hollywood and Marlene Dietrich for a little bit of theater synergy. In H2, we also have some theater or culture synergy with Bach and Gaudi. We have Maria Theresa together with the Ocean Liner Services, a very strong combination. There's Cook, but no Suez Canal, and one military action leader with Catherine. Newton as a strong economic leader, and also James Watt. We have Ocean Liner and Harvard as maybe very strong wonders. The other ones maybe a little bit more situational. We have the two science wonders, Silk Road Universitas in H1. There's Machu Picchu and St. Peter's Basilica. We have two military action leaders with Joan of Arc and Shishka. Nostradamus, Genghis Khan can help with the strength as well. We have Isabella, but without a colonization payoff. And then Saladin and Leonardo as more economical leaders. Right, and ciufile is in the first position. He starts with taking the Acropolis, which I guess is a fine decision. There's no colonization synergy for the Colossus, so Acropolis probably a fine wonder. Maybe Hippocrates could have been also a fine pick, then going for one of the wonders at the next turn, but maybe he has a chance to get a fine leader at his next turn now with going for the Acropolis. Eske will go for Hippocrates and for the Colossus, takes a leader and a wonder. And then for my turn, it was a bit of a question. I have maybe two main combinations that I have to think about, and both contain maybe a rather stronger leader and a rather weaker wonder, Hammurabi and the Hanging Gardens, or maybe a rather stronger wonder and a rather weaker leader, Library and Alexander. And so I had to think about which of those combinations I prefer in the situation. And at the end, I came to the conclusion that I rather want to have Library plus Alex in the situation. First of all, ciufile has the Acropolis and Eske has the Colossus, so both the players in front of me have a wonder that gives some additional strength. So the less military draws from Hammurabi could maybe be a little bit of a problem. Maybe there could be a little bit of military pressure going on, in which case maybe Hammurabi could be problematic, while the additional yellow token from Alex could even help me with maybe more easily being able to build more military units. And so with that I rather went for the library, and with Alex having a strong wonder that I can build, instead of going for Hammurabi here. I was kind of a little bit hoping that maybe moemoe would go for Hammurabi in urban growth. I'm not sure if it is the best pick for him, because he then doesn't know if he gets a wonder. Rome roads might be discarded before his next turn, and then he is playing without an HA wonder. But I was hoping it, because if he would go for that line, then ciufile has no leader available for one civil action. So I was hoping towards that, but it could be a bit of a tricky line for him, as it would mean that he maybe has to skip an HA wonder. And so sadly instead goes for the Rome roads, which is a very solid wonder in 4-player games. And sadly that, on the other hand, means that ciufile will now be able to go for Hammurabi for one civil action, so this Acropolis pick maybe paid off. I thought when I saw it that maybe Hammurabi and Hippocrates will be taken away, and then it could be problematic, but at the end ciufile gets Hammurabi now for one civil action, and with that I think that pick worked out very nicely for him. He does just normal stuff, building a mine, going for the leader, and using the Hammurabi's additional action to grab this urban growth. Eske will go for Hippocrates, increases population, builds a mine, takes the urban growth, and there is some interesting leader coming down the row. Also a leader why I was maybe willing to go for Alex, as it is a very nice replacement leader. There's Saladin coming down the row. The thing is, Saladin will stay on 3 civil actions for me. And the question is it maybe still worth it to actually take him for 3 here at the cost of delaying the mine? Of course, I could also build the mine and take Saladin for 3, but then I can't elect Alex. And if I go for Saladin for 3, then I think I want to elect Alex now, replace, use his ability at the next turn, then immediately go for Saladin at the next turn, getting an additional civil action very early. And at the end I actually went with it. Of course, it's expensive, especially not getting the production going, so I was not completely certain about it, but I think it's just such a strong early replacement. If I don't take Saladin, he's very likely been taken away by one of my opponents, and then one of my opponents will have a very strong leader. Saladin in the early game is just extremely strong, and then I maybe have to wait 3 or 4 turns until I have another chance to take one of those leaders. Of course, I could get one early, but all of those leaders don't give me as much value as easily as Saladin does that early. So I think even though it is quite expensive, 3 civil actions, delaying the mine, delaying the production a little bit, it is just extremely strong to get Saladin that early, use Alex immediately. So I don't think it's a no-brainer, but at the end I was willing to take Saladin for very expensive here. Normally I don't like it at all to delay my mine, so that is also showcases how much I value this early Saladin replacement for Alex here. Alternatively, I could have gone for Alex, build a mine, take the breakthrough, or just increase my population, maybe take a frugality. Those could have been fine turns, but then as said, who knows, maybe I will have to stick with Alex for a bunch of turns later, and in those turns maybe Saladin has already paid those civil actions back that I have now spent for him and for the leaders that I take. Then later on, of course, also have to at least spend 1 civil action, so it is very costly, but at the end I was willing to do it. I draw 2 cards, the Dark Ages and the Legion tactic, always nice to have a tactic available. Moemoe goes for building the mine, is willing to pay an additional civil action for Boudica. She is probably the better leader than Sansu and Moses, but with the Rome roads, paying an additional civil action is also somewhat costly, so I think going for Moses or Sansu here also would have been perfectly fine. Ciufile builds the second lab with using the urban growth that he took at the turn before, takes the breakthrough for 2 civil actions, increases his population, and then takes the stockpile. Now it's Eske's turn. He also will build a second lab with an urban growth, increases his population, is willing to take the irrigation for 2 civil actions, could have also taken something like urban growth Ridgeland or maybe Swordsman to have a military tech, but I think he values the irrigation relatively highly from what I have seen from him, so, and it's definitely a potentially very solid technology, so I think it's fine. Maybe I would have just gone for the 2 yellows, but having the irrigation definitely can also work out quite nicely. Or maybe Isabella, of course, could also be interesting, but there's also Joan of Arc coming down the road, so there's a chance that Eske maybe at his next turn also gets a replacement leader for Hippocrates. Now it is my turn. Of course, with having taken Saladin for 3, I want to use Alex immediately. I will elect Saladin, and then I think I have a relatively solid turn ahead of me. I first of all definitely want to take the swordsman. I have a tactic in hand for them. I have now the opportunity to take a military technology for only 1 civil action, so I think I really want to get that copy of swordsman. And then of course I could just start with building my mine, but it is not enough to get me out of corruption. I would have to increase my population. It could maybe be a fine turn, but I think there is a better line available for me here, and that is with building the second lab. With spending 1 resource more, that gets me out of corruption, I get a science production running, and with being out of corruption, I don't have to increase my population and can spend my last civil action on taking this rich land, sadly leaving myself without a free population, which is a bit annoying because I could have increased my population without going into consumption, in which case I normally try to have a free population, but here I think the rich land is just too strong. At the next turn I can build my 3rd mine for free, and go up to 3 production, meaning that in 2 turns I have exactly 6 resources available, which is just enough to finish the library. So I think I have a relatively clear plan here for the next 2 turns, which just will be a solid way to get my production going. I will be having the 5th civil action from Saladin the next turn on, and so I think that is maybe just the best solution for this turn, the only downside being that I don't have a free population. I take the civil action from Saladin, of course, drawing the border conflict and the enslave. Moemoe will increase his population, builds 2 steps of the Rome roads, one delays his second lab for a little bit, but gets an additional science from Boudica, will then take the Code of Laws that maybe he can go for at one of the next turns. Ciufile makes a very interesting turn here. He takes the Bread and Circuses for 2 civil actions, develops them with the breakthrough, takes the iron and the urban growth. So that turn looked a little bit weird to me, but I mean, he didn't have enough science to go into iron this turn, and at least, I mean, he has to spend his civil action somehow with having Hammurabi. He, thanks to developing the bread and circuses with the breakthrough, has enough resource to get into iron at the next turn. Thanks to having some resource saved up, he can get some upgrades going very, very quickly. So I do think it's maybe fine, but on the other hand, he doesn't know yet if he gets the free religion or not. With having the free religion, maybe bread and circuses are not that nice to have, but on the other hand, there's Pierre in the game, there's some synergy. Maybe it could have been fine to just, instead of bread and circuses, take the alchemy, go for an alchemy upgrade and take the iron, but maybe then he doesn't have that many resources saved up to then get the iron mines going as quickly. So if he values it just very highly to get the iron upgrades in as quickly as possible, then maybe that is indeed the best line that allows him to spend his action somewhat efficiently while still having enough hand space to take the iron and then still being able to go for some quick upgrades. So it looks a little bit weird, but he at the next turn can go for some quick upgrades, and maybe that could be worth it at the end. Eske seeds and opens the development of settlement. He will go for Isabella as a replacement for Hippocrates, get some additional resource production immediately. He pairs her together with the Colossus. There's no pay off with the Suez Canal, but still it would be nice to maybe win some colonies relatively cheaply. And then he goes for the alchemy, so in this turn he increased his resource and his science production, which should definitely be solid. Could have also gone for Joan of Arc, but he doesn't know yet whether he gets the free religion, and I do think the additional resource from Isabella and the potential to pair her with the Colossus are definitely good reasons to maybe go for her instead of John. Now it is my turn. I don't really want to push. I don't have a free population. I luckily didn't get punished for it, and now the development of settlement was revealed. I can now play the rich land, build this mine for free, and then as said, I have enough resource to finish the library the next turn. First of all, I have to get out of corruption. In order to do that, I have to increase my population 2 times. That leaves me with 2 civil actions at the end of my turn. And I don't necessarily want to develop the swordsman already. I'd rather want to keep that science, maybe in case there's an alchemy or iron coming, meaning I can spend 1 civil action of the library, or and then I can spend 1 or maybe 2 civil actions to take some cards. There's the monarchy, which could be a fine card to have. I have already committed to a leader that doesn't give me an additional military action, meaning if I don't go for the monarchy, I will, unless I go for warfare later on, go into H2 with 2 military actions only, which potentially can be problematic. And as long as I have Saladin, at least I have a solid amount of civil actions with the monarchy. But I will get a library, but I still don't have the most science production maybe to easily invest 8 science into the monarchy while still being able to maybe get some production going. And so I think it could be fine here to go for the monarchy. Maybe it is also possible to somehow set up a revolution at some point. But at the end, I said maybe it's fine, just at least now being at 5 civil actions with Saladin and then waiting maybe for an H2 government. Or maybe there will be another chance to go for the second copy of monarchy. As I don't have a clear plan to get into the monarchy quickly, I just let it be, I passed on it, let it be in the row, and took the frugality to maybe get some additional population out and then build 1 step of the library. I draw the raid and the phalanx tactic. Moemoe finishes the Rome roads this turn, and he will interestingly go for the Silk Road, which is definitely a wonder that I like, and I think it might work out nicely for him. But it's also a bit costly. He just finished the Rome roads, which is a 4-step wonder. Now he's a 5-step wonder. At the moment he is only in 4 civil actions. Soon at least he will get the Code of Laws going up to 5 civil actions. So I think it's a bit costly, but it can still work out nicely. After you have finished Rome roads together with Silk Road, I think it always feels like a strong combination, giving you some economical benefits. And when you go into H3, you have just 4 culture reduction from your wonders, which can also then at this point of the game be a very nice benefit. But the question is, how much will it delay some other stuff spending that many civil actions? But if he manages to finish that quite nicely, I do think that Silk Road pick can work out very nicely for him. Draws 2 cards. Ciufile will now this turn go for the iron, thanks to not having spent any resource on anything at the turn before. He can go for 2 upgrades. He takes Jan Shishka and the knights. Either has already drawn a tactic or is willing to go for the risk of maybe taking Jan Shishka without having a tactic already, and getting him for 1 civil action I think is definitely a very fine thing to get. Eske seeds, the development of planning is revealed. The 3 options for that development are development of warfare, markets, and civil life. And Eske chooses the development of civil life, will develop the irrigation with it, goes for another lab upgrade, is now at 4 science production, goes for farm upgrade, increases his food production, then he will take the iron and also the monarchy, so he maybe aims towards building up an H1 economy with going for all of the H1 upgrades plus the monarchy, which can be a bit problematic, but there are some strong wonders that maybe allow him to then still further boost his economy, because if you have all the H1 upgrades, then you can't really go for any H2 upgrades, and then there's the potential that you just lose a little bit of steam and your position is not that great going into H3, but if you get some strong wonders, then maybe that can work out very fine. This turn I want to finish the library, get my science production going, spend my resources nicely. And after that I have some civil actions left, and one of the cards that I definitely wanted to take is this copy of Ridgeland. It will just be helpful to maybe get some resource upgrades, also farm upgrades going quicker at some point. And then I could just take some cards, but at the moment I didn't necessarily want to pick the warfare. Also, I used the development of civil life to develop the swordsman. I could have also taken a free warrior, but as I want to maybe build swordsman anyway, I wouldn't save a military action, only the 2 resources, so I thought saving a civil action and 1 science should be the better call. And I then made the decision to increase my population and not spend too many civil actions to take some cards. Maybe the next turn there's either one of those copies of alchemy or maybe the last copy of iron on the row, allowing myself to maybe go for an upgrade, and then it could be nice to have spent some civil actions already and not be in a bit of a civil action debt. So I wanted to use that 1 civil action on increasing my population with the frugality. With my last civil action I then took the patriotism. Could have also taken a warfare, could be nice to at least have the option to go for an additional military action. There's also another copy that I maybe could have a chance to get, but with my momentarily low resource production and with only 1 copy of iron being left in the deck, I thought that maybe having even more additional resources and maybe allowing myself more easily to get into a legion tactic soon is at the end more viable than taking the warfare here. I then draw the knowledge of the ancients, another phalanx tactic. Moemoe seeds and opens the development of agriculture. He will develop the code of laws. I think with the development of civil life will then increase his population a bunch of times, builds the 2nd lab, takes the alchemy and the bread and circuses. The next turn can maybe go for the alchemy. If he takes a resource from Boudica, maybe can also finish the Silk Road, so he has some nice options at the next turn to further increase his economy. Ciufile will finish his iron upgrades, goes for another iron mine, plays the stockpile to make space in his hand, then takes the irrigation, increases his population and builds 1 step of the Acropolis. Could have also taken the alchemy, but the irrigation is not bad to have. There's an ocean liner service, and maybe is also eyeing that Machu Picchu that is coming down the road. Eske seeds, the development of religion is revealed. I have a free population, so I'm able to take the free religion. Eske can take the free religion as well, goes for an iron upgrade, takes the code of laws in hand and increases his population. At the next turn he has enough resources to finish the Colossus, which is probably the last chance for him to do so. Now it is my turn. I will take the free religion. I don't want to push. I don't necessarily want to increase my strength already this turn. Ideally I only want to do it at the next turn, so I want to slow the deck down a little bit, and both of those events are maybe not that great. I didn't go for the monarchy, so I'm still waiting for a government form. With that I don't really want to see the Dark Ages that much, and I have at least a little bit of additional science production, so maybe the knowledge of the ancients helps out my opponents more than it does me. I will increase my population. That's already enough to get me out of corruption. And then I could already build some units, but as I said, I rather wanted to use this turn to maybe get a little bit of economy still going before I have to then spend my resources on building some swordsmen, and with that I went for 1 upgrade to alchemy this turn, going up to 4 science production. Pair the alchemies together with the library will produce me an amount of science that could maybe be enough even for the rest of the game potentially. And no. For the last civil action I had to think a little bit about how important it is for me to let the iron stay in 3 civil actions, because Moemoe is the other 1 player that hasn't got a chance to take the iron. But at the end I came to the conclusion it's not that really important, because I think even if it is available for 2 civil action, it's not that likely that he will go for it. He has an alchemy in hand, he can finish the Silk Road, there's even Leonardo that he can pair with the alchemy. I think he has enough stuff to do that he maybe won't bother taking the iron for 2, and even if he takes it, I think it's not too bad to miss out on it. That's already relatively late anyway. There's James Watt in the game, so it could even be beneficial to maybe wait for the coal. And so I was at the end willing to just take this reserves, as I thought the additional resources could potentially be quite nice to have with my bronze mine production that I'm still having. I keep the Legion tactic and both of the events. I draw a colonization card in the medieval army tactic. Moemoe seeds and opens the development of trade routes, so now it's even a bit more tricky maybe for him to get out of corruption. He will indeed go for Leonardo, still needs a leader. Leonardo is available for civil actions, I think that makes a lot of sense. He will take him in hand, elects him, goes for the alchemy, goes for an upgrade, builds a warrior to get out of corruption, is now at 4 science production, so I think that's quite nice. As soon as he has finished the Silk Road and the Rome roads will switch to science, he really has a lot of science production going into H2. Ciufile this turn will finish the Acropolis, and then he indeed will go for the Machu Picchu. Maybe the reason why he grabbed the irrigation at the turn before, will then develop the irrigation and go for an upgrade, getting a little bit of food production going. So it's an interesting decision to go for the Machu Picchu, but I think it can be quite strong for him. He at least can finish it immediately, so it will be finished very quickly. On the other hand, I do think it's also one of those positions where having the Machu Picchu can end up being a little bit problematic. He has only 4 civil actions, he will lose Hammurabi soon, and is in low science and on low civil actions, at least has the Acropolis to maybe get a government form for cheaper, but I think there is at least a potential in his position that he has some difficulties finding a nice way to invest the resources of the Machu Picchu, but if he finds a way to use those resources nicely, it can still turn out to be a very strong wonder for him. Another interesting decision done by Ciufile this turn is to not elect Jan Žižka. There are only 8 cards left in the deck, and it would be quite bad for him to not get a civil action back for replacing his leader, especially now with having taken a Machu Picchu, where he maybe wants to have as many civil actions as possible. So probably he thought a little bit about what his opponents are supposed to do and how likely it is that the age will go on for another turn, and at the end he is willing to maybe gamble a little bit, hoping that he has another turn where he can use Hammurabi. So let's see if that will work out fine for him. Eske seeds, so the event deck is flipped now, the development of politics is revealed. That development gives me another colonization card and another tactic. Eske this turn has to finish the Colossus, otherwise it will be discarded before the end of the age. Will increase his population 2 times and just gets a lot of civil actions out of the way. Maybe has some free civil actions at the next turn in case there's a strong H2 card in a row. I don't want to push, I'm the strongest, and as the event deck has now flipped, I also definitely want to get stronger during this turn. I play the Patriotism. Having the Patriotism allows me to build 2 swordsmen, reveal the Legion tactic using my military actions now in H1, so that I maybe don't miss out on as many H2 draws. I'm now at 7 strength, I'm even the strongest now, so that should be nice. And then for my remaining civil actions, I can increase my population. I don't have knowledge about rats, so some players went for additional food production, so maybe there's a player who has knowledge about it, but still those could be in a deck, and it's a civil action that I want to spend anyway, maybe in preparation to have more free civil actions at the next turn when H2 starts, and there could be some strong H2 cards in a row. After that I have 3 civil actions left. I think I definitely want to take the urban growth as I'm low in resources, and I can use that card very nicely to get a cheap second lab upgrade going. And as I have the chance to take it for 1 civil action, I also wanted to go for the iron. It's a little bit late. If I started at the next turn, I get those upgrades only going in H2. But still, it could be nice to have a way to spend my civil actions effectively, and it's available for 1 civil action early, so I think it's a very good pick for me, and I don't commit to it yet, so if there's a very early coal in the road the next turn, I can still potentially consider going for that coal instead. And now I have 1 civil action left. I could potentially just play the reserves, but maybe I want to keep my options open for that, because as it looks at the moment, I will be stuck on 2 food, meaning playing it for food could potentially be nice in order to get an additional population out. At the moment it would be an unhappy worker, but you never know what events will be coming, how quickly I will be able to get a happy phase solution. So I think staying flexible on that card has definitely some benefits, and I do think there are 2 cards in the row that could be worth taking for me with the last civil action. One of them is the warfare. I have a decent science production, and it could just be nice to maybe have a way to get a third military action, especially at the moment. Moemoe is on despotism, ciufile is on despotism, Eske as well. He has at least the monarchy in hand. Maybe we'll go for it at the next turn, but still, the H2 government forms might be a bit contested, meaning that I could definitely end up going for the Republic, and then if I don't get a strategy, it could be a bit problematic. There is Catherine, but having the warfare as a backup plan could just be quite nice. On the other hand, there's also the drama, and there is definitely some synergy for it in the game. There's Bach, there's Marlene, there's the Hollywood, there's also Anthony Gaudi, so having the ability to have this drama, I think, is quite strong for me. The option to maybe go for one of those leaders. I do think that maybe, if we just consider what I want for myself, I would maybe lean towards the warfare, just as it can be important to maybe stay competitive in the strength in 4-player games, and it could be very nice in case I go for the Republic. So I think, considering only things for myself, I maybe should go for the warfare, but there's another thing to consider, and that is that drama isn't on a discard spot, and if I take the drama, it gets a lot more likely that ciufile will lose Hammurabi before his turn, which would be quite bad for him. He will lose the civil action from Hammurabi and the civil action for replacing his leader, so it makes a 2 civil action difference for him, especially with having Machu Picchu, and it would be a big setback. And as those cards are very close together for me, and order how valuable they are, I think maybe I should have actually gone for the drama here. Maybe I would have missed the option later to go for the warfare. Definitely I could regret it, but looking back at this, maybe I could have taken the drama, because then moemoe only has to take this 1 copy of Richland in order to end the age. Maybe he will end the age now regardless, as seeing that ciufile will maybe suffer from it. But of course, it's only one opponent in a 4-player game. You shouldn't think too much about hate drafting or creating awkward situations for your opponents, but it's still important, and I think in this situation the choice is a close one anyways. Maybe I should have taken the drama, but here at the end I went with the warfare to just be a bit more safe for the military and prepared for the Republic, which I think is a fine decision, but now the chance is a bit higher that the age won't end before ciufile's turn. I keep the Dark Ages actually and some colonization cards, deciding that I rather want to have the Dark Ages as an event to push than the Knowledge of the Ancients. The Reign of Terror is revealed. ciufile will lose a population. One of my opponents gets hit by something bad, so that's definitely some good news for me. moemoe will go for the Knights. Could have just finished Silk Road or something, but he is quite behind in strength, so I think of course it makes sense to build a Knight. He then builds 2 steps of the Silk Road and sadly will only take the Richland from below, making it that there will still be 1 card left on ciufile's turn. Maybe could have taken the drama and built 1 step less of the Silk Road, but I think it would have been a worse turn for him. He only would do it to hurt ciufile, which at the end he wasn't willing to do. So with that, sadly, ciufile's gamble did pay off at the end, and he has actually another Hammurabi turn ahead of him. ciufile will offer the open borders agreement to moemoe, getting an additional military action. He will finish the Machu Picchu, has a lot of production going now. Lexian Shishka has 2 civil actions left, which he will use to grab the drama and a breakthrough. I think the drama has some very big potential for him here, and maybe allowing him to really make use out of the big Machu Picchu food production that he will be having. Yes, the Acropolis can build a lot of them, and there is some leader support in the game, so that could really be a nice way to maybe make use out of the 2 wonders that he is having. He will then reveal the Legion tactic to get a bit of strength and culture with Jan Shishka. Now H2 starts, maybe sadly 1 a little turn too late. Eske will see the Good Harvest is revealed, meaning that now I, even without playing the reserves, have exactly 4 food to increase my population. And interestingly, Eske will go for Revolution to Monarchy. He could have developed it peacefully, but I still think it could be the correct decision maybe, because with that he can also immediately go for the Code of Laws at the next turn. Still has a decent amount of science left, and maybe just, he could have gone for some upgrades. So maybe it could have been an idea to just develop the monarchy peacefully, but maybe he didn't like it that he is a little bit low in science, that he maybe can't that easily go for the Code of Laws. Like this, he will earlier be on 6 civil actions, maybe can more easily grab one of those strong wonders for expensive if one of those is available. So I think it's a fine call here to go for the Revolution, even though it looks a bit awkward because he could have just developed it peacefully. And then he will go for the medieval army tactic, maybe hoping to get this last copy of Knights. now it is my turn, and as you can see, I will actually push the Dark Ages, which is maybe a little bit of a controversial decision, as I have quite a lot of science saved up. I'm waiting for an H2 government form. So it's definitely a bit of a risk that I take here, but on the other hand, I'm the strongest. That might change relatively soon if maybe the others start investing into the military more. Moemoe might reveal a tactic, maybe he can go for Knight's tactic soon. Eske might go for the Knights. Ciufile and Shishka has the Knights in hand. So now I have a shot at maybe winning a strength event that could be in the deck. Later on I might be a bit weaker. And at least I have knowledge about the event, maybe I have the option to prepare for it. I can still get lucky, get a government form relatively early, maybe the event deck won't progress as quickly, and at least, especially when I now go for an additional alchemy upgrade, I have some nice science production, so even if I end up losing a bit of science, maybe it doesn't hurt me as bad, as I can get the science back relatively quickly anyway, but definitely still a risky seed, because ideally I every turn want to leave myself with enough science to go for an H2 government form. The event revealed a sadly no strength event, instead a strategic territory. I was willing to build 1 swordsman and 2 cards, but at the end Eske is able to win it, who has the Colossus and Isabella, is willing to pay 1 resource and also pays 1 H2 card that he maybe has drawn with the Colossus. This turn I will go for the iron, it's nice to get a production going still, and also I need to spend my civil action somewhat efficiently. I can just wait for the coal, so I will go for the iron, I will go for 1 alchemy upgrade, just getting as much production going as quickly as possible. After doing that, I have 2 civil actions left, and I thought about if I maybe want to take this engineering genius, because there are some interesting H2 wonders that I could be hoping, where I could hope to get them at some point, and with the engineering genius I could just finish them a lot more easily. Taking a yellow card that gives 3 resources for only 1 civil action is a very good deal anyway. But those wonders might be in contention, and the other wonders can be fine, but are maybe not too great. I don't know if I'll get a nice chance to get one of those wonders, so at the end I decided against taking the engineering genius, and now that I actually got some additional food from the good harvest, I made the decision to play the reserves resources and just immediately go for an additional iron upgrade. So if I take the engineering genius, I don't get this upgrade going, basically meaning that the engineering genius would only give me 2 additional resources, and with that I just felt it should be better to spend my civil actions effectively and get the production going earlier. I have 11 science at the next turn, meaning I could go for Republic, but I'm missing 1 science to go into Conmon at the next turn. I draw 2 cards, the Freedom of Movement and a Spy. Moemoe doesn't see it, will finish the Silk Road, is now at 6 science production, which is definitely quite respectable. There's actually the first copy of coal, which I was not too happy to see, because it might allow Moemoe to go for that, for a very early coal upgrade. He will go for the second Knight, doesn't have a tactic, but at the next turn can copy the medieval army tactic that Eske has revealed at his last turn. Ciufile will also go for Knights, builds 1, builds another one, goes for the bread and circuses, increases population. He also doesn't reveal a tactic, but he also, of course, can copy the medieval army tactic, which would allow him quite a respectable strength push. So he might be the strength leader, or is already the strength leader, but might also remain the strength leader for some turns, with having Jan Shishka and having access to that medieval army tactic. So I was a bit unhappy that Eske already revealed it at the last turn. Maybe he could have kept it in hand, but maybe he had some nice draws with the Colossus where he rather wanted to keep those additional cards that he drew in hand. Eske sees the barbarians are revealed. He actually has the most culture and is one of the 2 weakest. We lose the population, which I was definitely happy to see. And then he will go for 2 upgrades. Another upgrade just gets all of the production going. Has now his whole H1 economy going with monarchy, alchemies, iron, and irrigation. Definitely will be interesting to see how it will work out for him, as I do think such a setup can be a bit problematic, but at least he also will be able to go for the Code of Laws, is on 6 civil actions, and I think especially if he gets one of those very strong economical wonders, he still can end up in a very strong position going into H3. With the last 2 civil actions, he takes the organized religion. I this turn see the freedom of movement in the deck. I'm still one of the 2 strongest. It could be a bit bad to see it, because that could also mean that the Dark Ages are revealed a little bit earlier. But on the other hand, now with pushing the freedom of movement, I know relatively exactly where it will be in the deck, meaning I have maybe good chances to prepare for it and get some value out of it. On the other hand, at the moment, I don't have a clear plan on how I exactly want to use it, but I just get some information. I'm one of the 2 strongest, could get rewarded by strength events. So at the end it were reasons enough for me to push, but I could get punished if maybe that means that at the end the Dark Ages are revealed earlier, or maybe I don't find a nice way to actually use the freedom of movement. The inhabited territory is revealed. I again wasn't willing to bid more than 1 unit in my cards. This time moemoe is actually able to win it. He has already drawn an H2 colonization card and wins it for 1 knight, which I think is nice for him. I this turn take the copy of Selective Breeding. It's maybe not the highest priority because both ciufile and Eske have irrigation, there's an ocean liner, but on the other hand I maybe also don't have that much to do, could have maybe taken something like Efficient Upgrade, but at the end I still thought it could be nice to have the Selective Breeding already and maybe get some food production going relatively early. Also it gives me something where I can invest a little bit of science into, so that I am at least preparing a little bit for the Dark Ages that could potentially be revealed already before my next turn. So I take the Selective Breeding. I thought about just going for a food upgrade, but I think I don't need the population as much at the moment. I rather wanted to finish my iron upgrade, and then I developed the Selective Breeding to have spent a bit of science, but one card that I then definitely wanted to take is the Cultural Heritage, making it that I'm prepared for both Republic and the Conmon at the next turn. Thanks to the additional science, so if a government form will be on the road the next turn, I can go for it, unless of course the Dark Ages are revealed before my turn. So it's the question how well that will work out for me with the Dark Ages, but maybe if a government form is on the road the next turn, it could work out very nicely if I'm able to get into a government form and then only lose maybe 1 science out of the Dark Ages. That would of course be the dream scenario for me. I could have also again considered cards like a drama, but there is actually Bach already in the row, and I was very certain that ciufile might just go for him because he has a huge potential for him with having the Acropolis and lots of population with the Machu Picchu. And with that I at the end wasn't willing to take the drama. I draw 2 cards, 2 pacts, which I maybe potentially can offer at the next turn. Moemoe Seeds, the Pestilence is revealed. I have a free population, so it's not the worst for me. He will build a knight, copies the medieval army tactic, takes this copy of coal in hand, copy of efficient upgrade and increases population. Instead of building a knight, could have also gone for a coal upgrade already, but there's 1 leader coming down the road, and that is James Watt. And with that, of course, that could be very beneficial for moemoe to delay going for a coal upgrade, and with building the knight, he also makes sure to be the strongest. Now it's ciufile's turn. He seeds. No Dark Ages revealed yet. Instead, the immigration, which will mean that ciufile will get an additional population. So he will lose a population with the Pestilence, will gain 1 back immediately, will increase his population, and makes an interesting decision here. Actually builds a 3rd farm while already having the additional Machu Picchu production. Maybe at first it looks a bit weird, but on the other hand, I do think it actually makes some sense, because he will now, with the last 2 civil actions, goes for Bach. Also, he will build a knight, copy the medieval army tactic. He will go for Bach. With having lots of food production, he can maybe easily afford going for a lot of dramas. And additionally, he at the moment has still Jan Žižka, and with building this additional farm, he at the next turn can build a 4th knight and actually get a 4th medieval army tactic going, which would put him at 19 strength, which is quite a threatening amount. So if he has maybe some aggressive military cards in hand already, and maybe that play could even be an indicator that he has some, then he could really go for a bit of a strength push, easily has the amount of population for it, and that could be a bit threatening for all of his opponents. Eske will go for the strategy. That might help him, of course, being a bit safer. Has now a lot of military actions. Is it 8 strength, takes the wave, increases his population, is maybe a little bit greedy with not taking the knights, but maybe has a good chance to get a cavalryman at the next turn. But he's lacking a bit of science to actually go into cavalryman at the moment. He then builds a warrior. Now it is my turn, and as you can see, I actually offered a promise of military protection to ciufile. First of all, of course, I had to consider if maybe there's a chance that at the moment someone would accept the scientific cooperation. Moemoe might accept, but he might be in a situation where he even gets at the end more out of it than I do. Maybe I could have offered it to him, but I felt a little bit afraid offering it to him. And ciufile and Eske, I think, are both too low in science at the moment to accept it, so at the end I went with the promise of military protection. I thought about 2 ways how I could offer it. Either I could offer it to give maybe ciufile some additional strength, because if he has indeed some military cards, maybe I could prevent him going for maybe an aggression or war against myself, because he has maybe even better chances, or can hope for better rewards against the other two opponents. On the other hand, it might of course also help him getting a lot of rewards, which could make his position quite strong, so that could be a bit problematic, but I would get a bit of an additional culture production, so that could be interesting. At the end, I actually offered it the other way around, because having the additional strength makes me one of the two strongest instead of the weakest. I can't really build a lot of strength in my current position, so if there are some strength events coming, I will now be able to dodge them. But of course, as soon as ciufile might attack me, I will lose the strength again, so it doesn't really make me safe from him, but might make myself safe from strength events, which was the reason why I offered it this way around, but maybe I could have also considered it to offer it the other way around. This turn I will go for the warfare, just to spend a little bit of science again for the Dark Ages, and also because the additional military actions makes me a bit safer against aggressions and war. Sadly, I don't really have a nice way to actually make myself completely safe. I can now go maybe, maybe I could have made myself a bit safer. I could have, for example, built a swordsman, and then it would be at 14 strength. Even if the pact is cancelled, I would be at 10, and with the two cards that I have in hand, I would be able to defend myself against an aggression. So I'm not sure if I do the right decision here, because I will actually go for 2 food upgrades, getting my production going as quickly as possible, which can be nice. It's very nice to be at the beginning of this area of the yellow bank and then just being at 4+4, meaning I can just increase my population every turn, very nicely going on 0 food every time. I think it is beneficial for me, or if I want to spend some civil actions and get out of corruption. So that's just very nice. I can get my production going as early as possible, and I will draw 3 cards, making it that I at least have a chance to draw defense cards, so that maybe ciufile won't go for an aggression against me, but he definitely could. The others might increase their strength a bit more. If he has an aggression, he might trade against me. So I think maybe I should have potentially gone for a safer play with building a swordsman, and also spending that many resources in the farm upgrades leaves me now with not the most resource. I will take a copy of patriotism with my last civil action, but even with the patriotism I'm only threatening 9 resources, and with having 10 resources maybe I could have been a bit more threatening, maybe potentially threatening to go for a classic army tactic, which could make myself a little bit safer from a war, because remember, as soon as ciufile chooses to attack me, I'm back on 8 strength. So I think it is maybe a bit too greedy what I'm doing here. I think one of the reasons why I wanted to get my production going quickly is that there's Maria Theresa coming down the row, and I thought she could be a fine leader for me. Maybe I then shouldn't have increased my population, but I still don't have knowledge about rats. Some players really have a lot of food saved up, so rats are not that likely. And also I thought the other civil actions that I can do instead are not the greatest. I don't want to play cultural heritage when Dark Ages are coming. Maybe I could have taken theology just to have a happy face solution in hand, but at the end I went with this line, which leaves myself maybe a bit vulnerable. So let's see how that will turn out. First of all, I will draw some cards. I don't draw defense cards, so if ciufile tries an aggression against me, I will get punished for it. Moemoe seeds. Sadly, the Dark Ages are revealed now. At the end, it didn't work out too well for me, but it's also not a disaster. Moemoe loses even 1 more science than me. I lose some science, definitely hurts me, but I also have at least some decent production, so the others losing a bit science maybe hurts them a little bit as well, but definitely not an ideal outcome. I do think I'm not on the others who lost only 1 and 2 science probably were less harmed by it. Especially because I still need a government form, which will require a bit of science that I need to spend. Moemoe will go for James Watt, can go for some very efficient upgrades now into coal, is already on 7 resource production, takes the selective breeding, so I think this James Watt has really the potential to boost his economy, has still the Silk Road and the Rome roads on top of it, so I think he is heading maybe into a strong economical position. And as you can see, there is sadly a war over territory declared against me. The pact is cancelled, and ciufile is able to, first of all, he will take the journalism, which is a very nice thing to invest into if you have the Machu Picchu. Then he will increase his population 2 times, builds a knight, builds the Britain Circus, goes up to 20 strength, and I really have some troubles with defending against this war. So let's see what options I will have available during my turn. But now that is quite problematic. I do think for a war it was not that easily possible to prepare myself better. Definitely could have prepared better. I should have maybe not gone for the second upgrade, leaving myself with some more resources lying around, which automatically makes me a bit more threatening. But I didn't have, I mean, I could have maybe taken the knights earlier. So definitely had some chances to maybe let myself look a little bit more threatening. If I would have now knights in hand, maybe threaten to go for a classic army. Maybe that could mean that ciufile would try the war against one of the other players. Eske at the moment doesn't have enough science to go for any military tech, so he has a lot of resources and food, but maybe then he could have been chosen as a target. But like this, I left myself maybe just a bit too vulnerable, was too greedy getting those upgrades going, and sadly will now get punished by quite a dangerous war. Then Eske seeds and opens the raiders. So sadly, the raiders are revealed after the pact is cancelled. So there was a chance that maybe the pact could have actually saved me from a strength event, but sadly now I'm actually back to 8 strength and will have to lose something from the raiders. Eske will build a warrior, copies to the legion, tactic is now at least a 12 strength, takes the cavalryman in hand, goes for the Harvard College, which I think is a very good decision by him. For science production is fine, but on the long run he needs more, and the Harvard College is a very strong wonder for him to invest his resources into. Now it is my turn. The Promise of Military Protection Pact was cancelled, and this time I am actually willing to offer the scientific cooperation to moemoe. It might still also be a very fine pact for moemoe. He has the selective breeding that he can now develop for only one science. Maybe he will go for the architecture or something, the rifleman, but he also still needs a government form, so he might also still save up some science, and I felt we might at the end at least get somewhat similar amount out of it, and then it's just a very nice pact to have. And he also accepts it, which is nice. So now the war is ongoing. The best or the highest amount of strength that I could actually achieve would be with going for riflemen, developing them, playing the patriotism, and then just building a rifleman and going for some upgrades. But even with doing that, I'm not able to go for more than 15 strength. I think if I remember it correctly, let's maybe do some calculations so that I don't tell you something wrong. I can build a rifleman for 5 resources, I can play the patriotism, have still 4 resources left, can then maybe go for 2 upgrades from swordsman to rifleman, that gives me plus 5 strength in total. I can take the strength from Saladin, so plus 7 is 15, so even if I do this I still lose 2 yellow tokens. I'm a bit safer from an aggression, but it also is very costly just investing into the rifleman when I already have the swordsman. And also, the first copy of Organized Religion is taken, there's this team spots coming down the row, and if I will lose 2 yellow tokens to this war, I really have some happy face issues, and then without a happy face solution I could get into big trouble, so with that it was then clear for me that I have to go for the team spots. There is at least pair in the game, so I have the potential to maybe get a very strong H3 leader later on, and the team spots also gives me a bit of strength to defend myself. Also I had to consider this turn if I want to go for one of those leaders that are on the row. Could go for Anthony Gaudi, could save me 2 science immediately to go for the team spots, and in this situation the 2 science might actually be especially helpful, because that could make the difference between me having enough science to actually go into a government form at the next turn or not, and if that at the end makes the difference, then I will get some additional civil actions, the engine will just be going a bit quicker, I will be getting some culture production from him. But I found that with this military pressure going on, it's maybe better to have a leader that actually helps myself defending against it, having every turn some additional resource for the military, and I have at least some decent food production. After losing the yellows, maybe I won't get as many population out, but still a decent amount, and with that I made the decision to go for Maria. I could also just keep Saladin. The additional civil action is definitely still very helpful. And there are some other decent leaders. Newton with alchemy could be fine. Catherine could be fine, especially if I get the Republic. But I felt like Maria might be stronger, and her abilities might really help me with this military pressure that is going on now. So I take the team spots, I take Maria, I elect Maria, I build a team spots, and with the 1 resource that I still have left, I can upgrade this warrior to swordsman. With that I'm at 11 strength, and I will lose the same amount of strength that I would have lost when I would be at 15 strength, so it doesn't make a difference for the war. I'm now more vulnerable to an aggression, that's definitely problematic. ciufile he has drawn this war plus 3 more H2 cards, so he didn't have that many draws yet, so I was hoping that maybe he won't have not a big aggression or war. And I also felt like this war is such a setback that maybe I have already to play it a bit risky. and I felt like just playing it maybe a bit more safe in regards from an aggression would just be too costly, especially with the happy face issues that I would have afterwards. So sadly I'm vulnerable to an aggression, but I think it's what I have to do here. I draw 2 cards, the Wealthy Territory and an Annex. Moemoe will go for the Conmont, but doesn't have enough science to go for it already this turn. Instead will develop the Rifleman, gets a bit of strength going to defend against potential aggressions and wars from ciufile. Ciufile will steal 2 yellow tokens from me, and he sadly does have a second war, so that is definitely not good news for me. I will lose another yellow token, my position will get damaged. It's a bit unfortunate that ciufile has drawn 2 wars into his first 4 draws. And it's that early in H2 that going up to 20 strength is just an amount that you can't guaranteed achieve. But maybe it is also not an amount that I needed to achieve. I maybe just would have needed to achieve an amount that would have made myself a less attractive target than my opponents. So yeah, I think I played it a bit greedily, but I also get a bit harshly punished here with a second war territory by ciufile, and we will have to see how nicely I will actually be able to defend against this. If I will end up losing another 2 yellow tokens, that would be an extremely big setback. ciufile this turn doesn't even bother about increasing his strength even more. He will just go for the journalism, which I think is the correct decision for him. He has a lot of urban buildings. The Acropolis will give him a very big discount as soon as he has a chance to get a government form from H2. Eske will take this copy of cannons, so sadly that will be taken away from me. He finishes the Harvard College, goes up to 7 science production, increases his population, builds the cannons, and then increases his population again. Now it is my turn. At least Maria is already giving me 3 additional resources for the military this turn. The question is if I want to push something, but there are just a bunch of events. You could argue maybe I need to take some risks. But I think the only event that would help me would be the new deposits, and there would be a lot of events that would actually be quite a disaster for me, and I will actually get stronger, so I am now vulnerable to strength events, but after my turn not, so I just wasn't willing to push here. And as you can see, I will actually go for the Rifleman, which is a bit awkward. Of course, in upgrading from Swordsman to Rifleman, maybe I would have rather had the cannons to go for some tactics. But actually being able to upgrade the Swordsman is also nice, because I can, without requiring even more population for the military, upgrade my strength a bit, maybe make more use out of Maria's additional resources at the following turns. And also going for the Rifleman just allows myself to go for a higher amount of strength, which will result in me losing 1 yellow token less from the war over territory. And with that I do think I have to go for the Rifleman, even though it's extremely expensive, because I just need to really, I think it's very important to lose now as few yellow tokens as possible, otherwise I will just have a very, very tricky position in H3. So I developed the Rifleman, at least with the discount from the scientific corporation, and I then don't have enough civil actions to play the patriotism, so I can, but I still have enough resources thanks to Maria to actually go for some upgrades, and now I'm at 16 strength, meaning I have just enough strength to not lose 2 yellow tokens. Now it's Momo's turn. He will go for his last upgrade and then will actually go for the Ocean Liner. He could have also gone for Selective Breeding as a decent yellow bank, but the Ocean Liner is just very strong, and if he doesn't go for it, then one of his opponents might be able to go for it. ciufile will sadly steal another yellow token from me. Him having gotten 3 additional yellows also means that he has now again the ability to get more population, which will be very strong for him with Bach, and he will follow up with his aggressive play, goes for a raid against Moemoe. He has the open borders agreement with him, meaning that he has an 8 additional strength actually when he attacks him, and he will destroy the alchemy in the religion from Moemoe, which is definitely now also a setback for him. Maybe it's at least good news for me. I'm not the only one who gets hit by the strength push from Moemoe, from ciufile, but Moemoe has a lot of resources. It's of course very bad for him, but maybe he can rebuild it and still be in a somewhat nice shape. ciufile this turn will go for increasing his population, builds another journalism, has lots of urban buildings, has found a very nice way to use the additional food and resource from the Machu Picchu. That worked out very nicely for him, and as soon as he gets a government form, which might happen at the next turn, he also has some civil actions. Also, he is willing to pay some civil actions for the cannons. Maybe it's a tactic or just wants to make sure to get one. Eske cedes and a wealthy territory is revealed. I was actually willing to bid a little bit for this for 1 unit, as I the next turn might not be able to use the full amount of resource from Maria anyway, and with the winning the colony I drop a bit in strength and could maybe then get some more resource out of Maria, so I felt like maybe it could be fine to win it, but Eske is able to win it, and he actually has to pay quite a price for it, 2 warriors and 3 resources, so that's interesting and could be an indicator that he actually is now able to make a transition into a new tactic, and that is also what he will be doing. It's interesting that he paid 3 resources from Isabella instead of maybe just sending a whole legion tactic, but of course it costs him an additional population, and I don't know, maybe it would have also made it a bit more difficult to get out of corruption if he doesn't spend the additional resource, but I don't think he has any corruption issues. So maybe that could have been an idea, but on the other hand, it still costs in population. Maybe at some point he can disband his warrior, put it somewhere else, so I do think it's also fine to pay the additional resource from Isabella. Maybe there's also another colony coming where maybe he has actually kept some cards and has some hopes to win that colony then for 1 warrior if he has now 1 left. He goes for a bit of strength, which at least means that potentially I can use more resource from Maria. The problem is, if I want to use the full resources, full 3 resources, then I would need to build an additional rifleman or swordsman. And the question is, do I really want to commit even more heavily into infantry units? There's a cannon on the row, but I can't develop it and increase my population. And because of that, I was actually willing to seed here. The prosperity might be a very nice event for me anyway, as I have some happy faces and additional food is valuable with having Maria Theresa. And I was hoping that maybe the freedom of movement could be revealed, which I seeded earlier. And that would allow me to put a swordsman somewhere else, and then I can actually increase my population, rebuild the rifleman, and use the full amount of resources from Maria. And yeah, so I seeded a prosperity, and there's indeed a freedom of movement revealed. I was happy to see it, and at the end used it to put this swordsman into team sports. I could maybe also consider, for example, putting it into an additional farm with having Maria, but the additional happy faces will also at least give me a little bit of food, and I just felt like with losing a lot of those yellow tokens, I'm just limited on how much population I'm able to have, and while this gives me more food, at some point my bank might even be running out. Of course, then I could destroy the farm again, but I just felt like having the 2 additional strength and happy faces from the team sports will be needed soon, and now I can build it without needing a civil action. This turn I had to make a decision on do I want to play it safe or greedy, and I think in my position after having already lost a lot and arguably being in a bad spot, especially compared to my opponents, ciufile has this nice Machu Picchu Acropolis thing going and soon can go for Bach. Eske has the Harvard College, has a very decent economy, is a very strong tactic to work with. Moemoe is maybe in the worst position from all of my opponents. I'm definitely in a worse one. Yeah, but he has also already 9 resources. Production has the ocean liner service, will go for the Conmon. So I do think all of my opponents are just in a better position. All of them even have also more culture than me. And with that I do think I need to play it a bit. I need to take some risks from now on. And because this copy of cannon is the last copy of cannon, there's only 1 copy of cavalryman left. If I don't take this copy of cannon now, there's the danger that I just could miss out on those techs and be in a very awkward spot. But I thought if I let this cannon stay on 3 civil actions, definitely could happen that Moemoe is not willing to take it. He might need to delay some stuff, maybe the ocean liner service or some other things, and maybe he doesn't have a tactic that doesn't require any cannons. And then I think I need to hope to get it for cheaper at the next turn, because I can take it for 3, maybe hoping to get into Republic at the next turn, but then I'm delaying 3 civil actions. I will get the Republic for cheaper, but I'm delaying 3 civil actions, so it's still maybe 1 civil action benefit from taking it for 3 and developing it now, and I might get more civil actions with the cannons being available for cheaper. So despite it being definitely a risk not having any military techs available, I think I need to take some risks now. I will go for the Republic. I can use the scientific cooperation to develop the Republic, increase my population, build an additional rifleman using the resource from Maria Theresa, making myself safe from aggression, playing the cultural heritage before I will lose it to the end of the age, and increasing my population again, as I don't want to take anything from the road to let the cannons stay on 3. I could have maybe taken some cards like Urban Growth, maybe even Architecture. Could have been nice to have. Also the Opera, maybe to be prepared for some other leaders. But I think I'm at least willing to go for that sacrifice to make it maybe a bit more likely to get a cannons at the next turn. I will draw 2 cards, an international trade agreement in the arms industry. Moemoe this turn will go for the Conmon, will use the freedom of movement to upgrade a philosophy to alchemy. Has a classic army tactic, which should give myself good chances that he won't take the cannons now, and indeed he will rather finish the ocean liner. Builds another rifleman, is now 21 strength, one of the 2 strongest, takes the journalism and the urban growth, can maybe start going for some culture and science production with the journalism soon, and he won't go for the cannons, so I think my decision here worked out nicely for me. And the other event out of those 2 was seeded by Eske, and we can see that it is quite a strong one for him. He made sure to maybe not have too much culture. It was actually a bit close with the culture, not extremely close, but you can see somewhat close. He is not that much behind, but he managed nicely to have the lowest culture and will now be able to destroy some stuff. It will be a bit annoying for Moemoe. He just used the freedom of movement to upgrade a lab. Now that will be destroyed again, so his buildings will get destroyed quite a lot and during H2 in this game, or got destroyed quite a lot. No, but he has a lot of resources. Maybe he can just rebuild his science production with journalisms now. Ciufile will use the freedom of movement to put, I think, a knight into journalisms, interestingly. It has now 3 of them and can actually go for a conman for 4 science. Not sure if I have seen that big of a Acropolis discount on an H2 government form in H2 in a 4-player game that often, or if I've ever seen that in 2-player games. Sometimes you get those extremely big discounts, or maybe later in H3, but already in H2 having that many urban buildings is quite strong, but he made sure to get a lot of food production. He got some additional yellow tokens with having that war, and that allowed him to have that many urban buildings, and now being able to get a conman for only 4 science, which is definitely extremely strong. He will go for the conman, he will develop the cannons, and builds one. Maybe he has a mobile artillery tactic, and he actually needs every bit of the discount, because only with the big discount he is able to develop cannons, drama, and conman this turn, making sure to have the drama before he will lose it to the end of the age. And he will actually also disband now a warrior, or actually a knight, and rebuild it as a cannon, which is an indicator that he doesn't have mobile artillery. Maybe rather plans to copy the fortifications tactic. Still interesting that he didn't disband a warrior, but maybe wanted to keep the tactic. Maybe that makes a difference between being able to defend against an aggression or not, especially if he keeps, or he definitely keeps this as H1 card, and if that is his only defense card, then it's important to keep the tactic and stay only 6 strength behind Eske. Eske seeds, and the new deposits are revealed, all gain quite a bunch of additional resources, and Eske this turn will actually go for the Louvre. And I have to say, this is a situation where I think I just completely agree with him that the Louvre is the best call here. He has upgraded already all of his things, so if he doesn't go for the Louvre, the question is how to actually use the civil actions effectively. He has the cannons already, could of course take an opera in hand, maybe a breakthrough, so he could take some cards, but he couldn't really make that great investments. He maybe could invest into opera instead, but at the moment he doesn't have the most food production, so the question is how quickly will he actually be able to go for a second opera, and then it has cost him some science, maybe science that he will later need for an H3 government form, and now he will just get some culture production, make sure to not fall behind too quickly behind Ciufile, who is the culture leader, and he also has some additional blue tokens from the wealthy territory, so I think, especially with having the engineering genius 2 in hand, it's just a very strong Louvre return. And he also, with going for the additional cannon, I think with the freedom of movement, is now 29 strength and is looking quite threatening. Now it is my turn. I was willing to push the arms industry. I am not the weakest, and I just wanted to get every bit of culture that I can get to somehow not fall too much behind and somehow stay in the game. So I see that the arms industry, and I will also take cannons and cavalrymen, so there's definitely also the chance that it will turn out to be quite a nice event for me. The Crusades are revealed. I'm not part of that, so it's a somewhat neutral event for me. And then I will take both cannon and cavalryman. I could only take one of them because there is now the classic army revealed, the fortification, so I could just commit to one of them, but also being prepared for H3 tactics is of course quite nice. And so I took both of them. The decision now, do I rather want to aim towards getting into the classic army or the fortifications? I do think it might take a while until I actually can build 4 cannons, and of course even then, for cavalryman with the classic army is just better, so unless there's a big colony where I can send some riflemen away, the classic army is just better. Cannons maybe would be better for H3 tactic preparation, but with cavalryman at least I'm still prepared to maybe get a bit lucky and draw a modern army tactic, or maybe I could even draw shock troops. So I went after taking the breakthrough, which is also a card that I definitely want to take for one civil action. I built a team sports, developed a cavalryman with the discount from the scientific cooperation pack, built one going up to 22 strength. I thought for the last civil actions that I maybe will just take one card. I thought about navigation, maybe the opera for some leaders. I think I mainly then thought about the opera, maybe just floating the last civil action. But there's a problem, and that problem is that I will lose those 2 H1 colonization card. I have no H2 colonization card, and if I have stayed 22 strength, I would even need 2 H2 defense card in order to defend against Eske. Eske will get some Colossus draws. He has enough military actions that he can try an aggression without missing out on any draws. So I would be vulnerable to an aggression, and maybe also the best target, as ciufile has probably the ability to increase his strength quite a bit during his next turn. And yeah, with that, the question is, do I want to make myself at least a little bit safer, but at what cost will that be coming? And also just taking the opera and floating the last civil action is maybe also not the most efficient civil action use. And with that, I actually at the end was willing to destroy this religion. It's annoying that it cost me a culture reduction, but the happy face is not needed in the near future. It will cost me also food from the prosperity, but it allows myself to play the patriotism, build a cavalryman, use my civil actions efficiently, and going up to 25 strength. You might notice that that is still not enough to defend against an aggression, but I think with me actually putting some effort into building this cavalryman, the chances that Eske will actually try an aggression should now be a lot lower, and also I have limited amounts of population available, with sadly having lost that many yellow tokens, meaning that at some point I might need to destroy this religion anyway, and so I maybe can at least be civil action efficient and already do it this turn, but it also definitely still didn't feel great. Maybe I could have kept the religion for a bit longer and got some culture reduction out of it. But I just felt a bit safer. Maybe I should have just taken the risk, but yeah, I rather wanted to build this already. At least having the cavalryman already at the next turn, I can just copy the tactic, maybe for one turn not using Maria's resources. And I was hoping that maybe there could be something in a row, maybe something like oil, computers, that allows me to spend some resources with upgrading stuff so that I don't need new population for it, and that maybe something like this could give me myself a chance to build up a position that is competitive against the civilizations of the other players. I draw politics of strength and acceptance of supremacy. Then H3 starts. Moemoe will go for the journalism. He has tried to rebuild an alchemy or moved the philosophy to alchemy, but it didn't work. It got destroyed immediately again, so now he will just build journalisms directly. Goes up to 8 culture production, 5 science production, builds a bread and circuses, builds another bread and circuses. Would also be nicely prepared for Pierre. There are 3 players actually who are nicely prepared. I have 2 team sports, Moemoe 2 bread and circuses, and ciufile also 2 bread and circuses. Also, we are at the beginning of H3, so maybe time to take a quick look at the overview. I'm still behind in culture. Moemoe has the best resource production, but ciufile also has a lot of resource production. I have, at least together with Moemoe, the most civil actions, but my yellow bank is in a bad shape, so at the moment my economy definitely doesn't make up for the culture deficit that I'm having. Of course, it's only a small culture deficit. I'm still somewhat in the game, but if at this point someone would offer me a 3rd place in this game, if I just stop playing now, I think I would consider accepting it. You never know what happens. So, and 3rd place only gives 1 point for the tournament standings, especially after the not so great result in the first game. Maybe I wouldn't accept the deal, hope to get a better result. Probably I should do it, but I really wasn't convinced about my position here, and I think I need a bit of luck in order to come back. Maybe drawing a war and one of the other players not being careful, maybe getting an early Pierre, getting an early thing to upgrade to, getting a strong wonder, maybe one of the other players getting hit by a big war, something like this. I think winning the game is extremely difficult, but also 2nd place I was not too confident if I can reach, but 3rd place might definitely be doable. For that I just maybe need to stay competitive in strength and just get a bit of culture along the way. Maybe that can already be enough, but I think at this point my position is definitely not that great. ciufile can now get a lot of culture production going. If he manages to defend himself, he might be in a very good spot. Eske has a good tactic, might be the strength leader for a while, will not fall behind too much in culture, so he might also be very in a fine shape. Has a lot of science saved up, can maybe go for an H3 government form in moemoe. It's a bit of a tricky spot, but he has the ocean liner service, will get a lot of population and has a very respectable production. ciufile during his turn seeds, the civil unrest is revealed, but no one loses any culture. He will go for the Kremlin actually, develops the architecture, builds the Kremlin, upgrades the farm, builds drama, going up to 13 culture production, now being at 7 civil and 5 military actions. I do think going for this Kremlin is a very nice idea by him. And he then copies the fortifications tactic, showcasing that he doesn't have a usable tactic for himself, and is now still the weakest, but maybe a bit safer. Eske seeds, and the developed territory is revealed. I was actually willing to bid 2 units. Maybe I should rather bid 5 or 7. 7 would be very risky, so probably rather 5, because it would maybe be good to fake a defense card in my hand, and with bidding 5 it looks like I bid 3 and a defense card, and maybe I don't win it for 5 anyway. At least with bidding 6 I made ciufile now pay a little bit more, but in order to maybe fake a defense card, it could have been better to bid 5. On the other hand, winning it could be somewhat nice, because getting some yellow tokens back in the bank, even if it's expensive, could still be nice, and at least I then would be weaker again, could use Maria's resources to rebuild, have those additional yellow tokens, 5 additional science, so I felt like it's expensive, but for the price it wouldn't be that great, so maybe I should have just bid 5 here and just faked the defense card. ciufile wins it for warrior and 3 colonization cards. Eske will take the frugality, uses it immediately with the Harvard College, increases population 2 times, builds a cannon, goes for the navigation, and is now at 34 strength. He could have even gone for more strength, maybe showcasing that he doesn't have an aggression in hand. I think it could have been interesting for him, going even for another army and not missing out on any draw, and maybe being able to threaten aggression at the next turn, but maybe he doesn't have one, or maybe he, with having not the most population, rather wanted to stay flexible and where he wants to put this population. Or maybe there's a colony coming and he knows that he will lose some strength likely anyway. He is now went for the navigation, so that definitely could be a sign that a colony will be coming. Now it is my turn, and one of the things that I was hoping for is actually in the row. There is something that I can upgrade to, a copy of computers. I first of all made a decision to not push, as both of those events are not looking to be too great, as has this big colonization force, and maybe I could hope towards winning the politics of strength, but at the moment it's not really looking like that. And then I will go for the computers. I think I need this boost to my economy. It gives me a nice way to get out of corruption. Sadly, there's no Bill Gates. That could really be a way maybe to get back into the game. All of a sudden having a very big economy, but also just for the economical benefit, the preparation for impacts itself. The computers are very strong, and there are at least some auto payoff leaders. So I will go for 1 upgrade. I will also go for a 2nd upgrade, maybe leaving myself a bit vulnerable, but I can copy the classic army tactic this turn, and there's at least a danger that either with help from developments or maybe with the other players getting stronger, I could maybe threaten to build 2 cavalrymen. Of course, the biggest threat is Eske, and he knows whether the players got stronger or not, but I was hoping, and that especially because there is actually this deck, no, I think the next deck is the arms industry, but I was hoping that I won't get punished by a war, and I just wanted to get those upgrades going as quickly as possible, and I do think I need to take some risks. With the last civil action I took the breakthrough. I have now some good science production, but having even more is not bad. I draw 1 card, the Occupy. moemoe has the chance to get an early oil. He has already coal, but with James Watts, those upgrades are just so cheap, and it's still very early in the game, so that I definitely agree that it is the best course of actions for him. He is now at 15 resource production for the rest of the game, and I do think that gives his position quite a strong boost. He then builds a rifleman to get a bit stronger, increases his population, and ends his turn. ciufile will increase his population, upgrades the temple to drama with Bach, disbands the knight, builds a cannon, builds another cannon, is now at 27 strength, takes the patriotism, the reserves, is now at 15 culture production. It's definitely looking good for him if he manages to defend himself, but he has now made a transition into the fortifications. Eske seats and opens the Iconoclasm. That's definitely an impactful event. Maybe explaining why Eske didn't really bother about picking any of those H2 leaders. And now I lose Maria Teresa, bit of a setback. At least ciufile loses Bach. But if I am in a good enough position to hope finishing before him, we have to see. But maybe if he plays it a bit greedily and gets hit by a war, there might be a chance. And James Watt moemoe losing James Watt is maybe not too bad, even though he could have maybe still used him on some farm upgrades. Eske will increase his population, takes Mandela, so he sadly finds a very nice immediate replacement with having no leader at this point. He will then take the reserves, the engineering, and builds this additional organized religion and also a cannon. I think he mainly takes the reserves for food, because if he would have if he wants to use it for additional resources, he could have just developed the engineering and saved 2 resources in the organized religion, but he was willing to miss out on it with grabbing the reserves for actually 2 civil actions, but I think getting an additional population out with the reserves might be extremely important for him. And with Mandela, he is now at 10 plus 2 culture production, so he is definitely not really falling behind ciufile. Now it is my turn, and I think I again wasn't willing to push, as those events still are not looking too great. Maybe I could see the politics of strength, saying that it is at least somewhat neutral event, but I will get Air Force this turn, I am somewhat safe. Maybe I should have just pushed it for the 2 culture here, but it could also definitely backfire if I then at the end still get hit by it. This turn I definitely want to go for the civil service. I have the pact, I have a lot of science production, and it pays itself back immediately, even makes it that I don't have any issues to get out of corruption. And then I just reached out for 2 cards on 3 civil actions. First of all on Pierre, allowing myself to get a new leader immediately, and also removing Pierre from both moemoe and ciufile. For both of them, Pierre would be very strong, and I do think Pierre is maybe one of the ways how I can back into the game, how I don't fall too much behind in culture. I will get the Olympic Games, I get additional 4 culture production immediately, maybe make myself a bit safer from wars and all aggressions. And then I also took the Air Force. I thought about if maybe I can be a bit greedy, increasing my population, building an arena, but I think I can't really spend any resource, then I leave myself too vulnerable for the military. I think I need to at least threaten another army. And also, one way is how I can get back into the game is if one player builds up a lot of strength, but I actually manage to defend myself nicely so that another player is hit by a war, and with that I think having the Air Force is just very important. I will draw some aggressions and wars, maybe not ideal draws. I think I rather have to hope towards some nice impacts, especially impacts that maybe synergize with my early computer upgrades. The war could still be nice though, because I have now the Air Force. If I get a copy of Military Theory, maybe there's the potential to actually go for war at some point. Moemoe seeds, the prosperity is revealed, so some additional food for everyone. And moemoe will interestingly go for the rockets, is not completely content on the classic army tactic. However, at the end of his turn, he won't take one of those 2 copies of tanks, showcasing that him building the rockets is not as in preparation for a potential modern army tactic. If he would have no tactic, I also think grabbing the tanks should be a high priority to be prepared for a potential modern army, meaning that it maybe could mean he actually has already a nice tactic in hand. Maybe something from H2 like the Napoleonic army, but maybe also something like positional army could be possible here. He then takes the movies, making it certain that he has something nice to invest as many oil resources into. Now it's ciufile's turn. He will go for the modern infantry and the military theory, knowing that he has a bit of a culture lead, and moemoe has the potential to maybe build up some strength. He just went for those rockets. Maybe he has a tactic already, so ciufile reacts nicely, goes for the modern infantry and the military theory, but also doesn't go for any tanks. Also maybe indicating that he has already a usable tactic, or is just hoping to get one. Eske seeds, the arms industry is revealed. I at least gain 2 additional resources out of it. Eske will then go for the democracy, gets a big boost out of that. Still has a good amount of science left. Will take the reserves and the United Nations. So I think he is in quite a nice spot. Is only, when we now see his production, he is only a little bit behind ciufile, but I think he has the better economy, has no wonder lying around, and is also stronger militarily at this point of the game. Now it is my turn. I am not the strongest. And now, while those events are maybe still a bit questionable on how nice they will be, at least it will take quite a while until those will be revealed, and especially the vast territory that late in the game is maybe not that important. Maybe it could still even be nice for me. Maybe the others are not willing to bid for it late in the game, but for myself, if maybe my yellow bank is empty, it could still be nice to win this colony. So I made a decision that I now want to start pushing, get some additional culture out of seeding some events. The Independence Declaration is revealed, which is actually a bit annoying for moemoe, who will lose 2 yellow tokens with losing the inhabited territory 1. I this turn, as you can see, will go for the democracy. I just think I also need to increase my culture production. Of course, maybe I should need to hope to go for a war, but with the actions that I'm doing, I'll definitely leave this door open. In order to go for a successful war, I very likely will need a copy of military theory, and I still have enough science, thanks to my good science production, to, even after going for democracy now, when I grab this rev idea, to easily go for air forces and military theory soon. So that if I should get this copy, I still can set up for a war, but for now I can just get a culture boost, increase my population, build 1 team sports, going up to 10 culture production, take the rev idea, take the reserves, and then with the last civil action, I thought neither of those technologies will be really nice for me. Maybe I could take the multimedia, but I think a copy of movies would be better if I need something to invest some resource into, and I also doubted that I will be able to easily afford a multimedia. I was rather hoping towards a wonder like spaceflight or fast food chains to at the end invest my resources into, and with that I just increased my population with the last civil action to have more civil actions at the next turn. I was not too happy about my draws here because I really think I need some impacts in order to have some hopes to come back into the game. Cards like Impact of Tech or Progress or Impact of Science could be really important. Of course, I would need to be a bit lucky to draw those specific impacts, but not drawing any feels a bit bad. I have a second war now, but if there will be enough time to actually go for 2 wars will be to be seen. And yeah, but at least I have the option to go for those wars, but I really wish to maybe get an impact at this point. moemoe Seeds, the autonomous territory, is revealed. Eske is actually able to win it. I wasn't really able to bid too much for it. Eske wins it, and he has to pay quite a price for it. Pays 2 cannons, and as you can see, he actually takes 6 food from it, so that he can basically get the population back that he lost to the cannons. I'm not sure if it was actually worth it for him to send those cannons away. The actions might still be nice, but there are not that many turns left. At least he will maybe get a bit more culture from Mandela also. But especially if he then rebuilds those units, it feels a bit questionable. If he maybe has drawn something like Mechanized Army and now goes for Cavalryman, then of course it makes a bit more sense again. And of course the additional actions are not bad. moemoe plays the revolutionary idea with the Silk Road bonus, builds an additional bread and circuses, takes this copy of Air Forces, increases population, builds a rocket, and takes the patriotism, which he can use together with the Silk Road bonus. So that is something that you shouldn't forget when one of the opponents has the Silk Road and you think about how much can he achieve for war. Don't forget that the patriotism can be played for 2 military actions. Ciufile this turn offers the international tourism to moemoe. Both of them have 3 wonders, so it's a fair deal for them. Of course, I'm in a situation where I maybe could be hoping to get pacts offered too, because my position is so bad, but sadly I have only 1 wonder to offer, and that is of course not a great deal for Ciufile then, so that's the right call for him, of course, to offer this pact to moemoe, or at least not to me. I'm not sure if it maybe could have been offered to Eske. I guess it could have been also, but at the moment Eske looks maybe a bit closer, even though moemoe is actually also only 5 culture behind Eske at the moment, so he definitely is completely in the running, especially with his big resources, could maybe overtake Ciufile and Eske soon. Ciufile goes for Marlene. She's a very nice leader for him, helping with the happy faces, but also potentially with the military. He will then build another journalism and another drama, which is maybe a tiny bit greedy, especially also with not taking the military build-up, because moemoe went for those rockets, took Air Forces, patriotism at great cost. I definitely think there is something coming. And then investing now into journalism and drama, I think maybe just investing into the drama maybe would have been the safer play instead of now investing into both of those things. Investing into the journalism, though, at least allows Ciufile to go for Air Forces already at the next turn. But I think for the next turn, the threat from moemoe is not that great yet. could already go for a respectable amount of strength, but if he has a war indeed in hand and a good tactic, it might make sense for him to delay the war by a little bit, and maybe it could be good to have the military build up and just a bit more resource available. Eske will offer a military alliance to Moemoe, making him even stronger, and also making it that Eske is not the weakest after his turn. He will take the engineering genius, he finishes the United Nations, and I was not too happy about the impact that he evaluated with it, because he will actually evaluate the impact of culture, which is interesting because ciufile will actually get a bit more culture out of it than Eske. I only get 0 out of it, moemoe only 5, so it's an interesting decision by Eske to evaluate this impact, because at the moment it's definitely looking that there's the potential that ciufile and Eske are maybe in the leading position. On the other hand, moemoe has the big resource production, he can easily come back into the game. Also with the potential of a war, so maybe Eske thought maybe he could really use the 5 culture, maybe he was uncertain which of those things he needs more, and then at least he gets a total of 10 culture out of it. Yeah, but it could of course backfire if it will indeed be close between ciufile and him at the end, and the 5 additional culture make a difference. But for me, of course, it makes the not so big hopes that I had even smaller now getting this impact evaluated, especially if there's the danger that maybe it will also be seeded, but ciufile and moemoe both might have better ways or might stay ahead in culture, so hopefully this impact at least won't be seeded into the deck. Eske then will increase his population, develops the engineering, and takes the military build-up. It will be helpful for him to threaten more strength, also plays the reserves and builds an additional organized religion. Now it will be my turn. I cede the politics of strength. I will go for an air force this turn, getting a bit stronger. I thought that moemoe might continue building a bit of strength, so probably I won't win it, but I just wanted to get a bit of culture for seeding it. The event revealed is the economic progress, which is a bit problematic for me, because I will get some additional resources, but not that much. Moemoe gets by far the most resource out of it, but he loses a little bit of food, at least doesn't have any famine yet. And now the additional resources and food will cause a little bit of a corruption though, and so I had a turn planned that would have worked without corruption, but now I have corruption. I had to re-evaluate it, difficult word, now that causes some corruption. And now I will go for an air force. I will build one, making myself the strongest instead of the weakest, and also using the 1-3 military action that I'm having at the moment. And as you can see, there is actually a copy of military theory in the row, and I have drawn all of those wars, so I really had to think about if I set myself up, which I am possible to do, to just go for military theory, 2 cavalrymen, 1 air force at the next turn. Is this enough to be somewhat threatening? And it maybe depends a little bit on which player will get the air forces. Both ciufile and Eske don't have an air force. Whoever of them doesn't get an air force, there's at least a potential that those might be a bit vulnerable, but both of them, if they have the right H3 tactic, might at the end still be good enough prepared to actually defend against a war. I think I even thought about declaring a war already this turn, but it just didn't really work, and I thought maybe some of them could be a bit greedy, not careful enough, and maybe I then could punish them, so I at least wanted to have the option to go for war if possible. But I also don't need to overly commit to it, because I thought it's unlikely that I actually will be able to get a successful war going. And there's another thing that I really want to take, and that is the space flight, because with having gotten those early computers and having the scientific cooperation pack, that wonder will actually be quite big, maybe allowing myself to get back into the game, and especially with having that nice wonder to build, I think it's even more unlikely that I will actually be able to go for a war. I then wanted to have the satellites. I maybe need to hope towards a nice impact. An impact of progress could be one of those really big ones for me. Moemoe doesn't have a nice progress at the moment. ciufile at least a somewhat solid one. I can maybe also hope that Eske has maybe pushed impact of progress already into the deck. The satellites also give me a bit of additional strength. Maybe I can win the vast territory, get some additional yellow tokens cheaply, maybe from 1 unit. So I went for the satellites, and then at the end I still went for the military theory, but I really also considered to play the reserves for food and increase my population, leaving myself with enough resources to go for another army with air forces, not in order to declare war, but in order to defend myself. But now, and the problem is if I don't increase my population now, it's likely, very likely, with Eske having that many civil actions, that the age will end before my next turn, then I will lose those 2 yellow tokens, and I actually won't be able to get any new population out, which will be a bit awkward. So I took the military theory, that gives me the option to go for a war, but a war would come at big destruction, it might come at the cost of not being able to finish the space flight, so I thought it's unlikely, but maybe there somehow will be the opportunity to go for something like this. But also the military theory, of course, makes myself a bit more safe. If I leave it to Moemoe, he might be able to go for an even bigger war, and I maybe need to hope that maybe I actually need to hope that he goes for a big war, but if I am then able to threaten a bit less strength, maybe I then get a more valuable target for him, so it makes maybe me a bit safer. I also could have maybe thought about not going for the satellites and then going for a line where I leave myself open to be a little bit lucky. Because if there's 1 copy of rocket left, if I should draw a tactic like Modern Army, I could potentially go for an even bigger war. But now, with the scientific cooperation back likely being cancelled before my next turn, I won't be able to go for both rockets and military theory, and the cannons will likely be discarded. So I thought about also developing the cannons, just leaving the door open. Problem is if I don't build another unit this turn, then I don't have enough military actions to declare war and go for both tactics and air force. Of course, it feels maybe weird to you that I consider something like that when I don't even have the tactic, but the problem is if you are quite a bit behind, you really need to think about ways what could bring you back into the game, and of course maybe drawing this tactic and then actually going for a big war could be nice, but I just didn't find a nice, or could be one way to get back into the game, but I just didn't find a good way to prepare for it. So at the end I went for this. I'm not, at this point I was really not certain what gives me actually the best chances. So at the end I just played it in a way so that I'm relatively safe. I can hope for a big impact of progress. Maybe I will draw something like impact of tech or progress during my next draw. It would be really important to maybe draw now a good impact to have some hopes left. And then maybe I can hope to myself at least being able to threaten a lot of strength. So that I'm not the target of a war if, for example, Moemoe will continue building up some strength. I will draw 1 impact. I will actually draw the Modern Army tactic. Sadly, it's now not really possible to do anything with it with a war at the next turn. So maybe I should have committed to it, but of course it's a big commitment without having the tactic. And then there's the Impact of Harmony, which is seedable maybe, but also only if I don't destroy anything, which maybe could be nice in order to build more team sports or something like this. So not really a great impact. With that, my hopes really didn't increase in order to overtake one of the opponents. There's the Impact of Industry revealed by Moemoe. Maybe that has been seeded by him. He has quite a big amount of production, has got those 3 oil mines. He will now go for selective breeding as a way to avoid famine, goes for the bro sports, upgrades a farm, disbands a knight, builds a rocket, disbands another knight, builds another rocket using all of his military actions this turn, goes for Marie Curie, goes for an upgrade to bro sports, and at the next turn with the Silk Road, he has 3 military actions after he declares a war, which would be exactly enough to build 2 air forces and reveal a positional army tactic. And then he can also go for some more upgrades from circuses to bro sports, so he is now really threatening a lot. Even though he's only at 41 strength, he can do a very big strength push at the next turn, as at the moment he doesn't have any tactic fulfilled. So now it's the question which player can defend how nicely and threaten how much strength. And ciufile gets a bit unlucky maybe. The last copy of Air Force is very late, meaning that he can't rely on the Air Forces to defend himself. The Impact of Government is revealed, which is the worst for Moemoe, the best for Eske. ciufile takes the fast food chains, reveals the entrenchments tactic, builds the modern infantry to get out of corruption. He doesn't take a lot of cards from the row, so he can maybe hope that the air forces are not revealed, so that Eske maybe has to try to defend himself without them. That could maybe make a difference on which player gets hit by a war. And if ciufile doesn't get hit by a war, he has the fast food chains. There are not really any resource yellow cards that he could have used this turn to defend himself a bit better. I do think it could have maybe been beneficial for him to have something like military build-up in hand now. Maybe if he had committed less into the journalisms, or not, if he hadn't built this, then he could have been a bit more safe. But yeah, without the Air Forces he could be in trouble, but there will only be 2 out of 5 cards revealed, so if the Air Forces aren't revealed now, Eske might not have a chance to get them. But as you can see, during those 2 cards, the Air Forces will be revealed. Eske will play the military build-up, has the mechanized army tactic, builds 2 cavalrymen, takes the Air Forces, the movies, the urban growth, the revolutionary idea, has corruption, but maybe doesn't have a nice way around it, has the reserves in hand, has also the Louvre token, so can go for definitely 2 Air Forces, and even after that he has actually has 11 resources left, so he can't go for a 3rd army, but definitely can threaten a somewhat respectable amount of strength. During my turn, I will push. I was hoping that the vast territory will be revealed and that I can actually win it. Before that, I had to calculate how, if I can still threaten a big enough amount of strength in order to defend myself, and it would be possible. I could still threaten to go for 2 modern army tactics with Air Forces, now that I have a chance to get the rockets, so I was willing to bid 1 unit, but sadly ciufile has some colonization cards, meaning that I sadly don't get some yellow tokens back into the bank. It would have been nice to win this, because I would have gotten 1 token back into the bank. I would have gotten 4 additional tokens, meaning I would be a dead area of the yellow bank with 1 token. With the 4 food, I would be at 12 food, so I could increase for 5, and then I have just 7 food left to increase again, so I would have gotten 2 more population out. Maybe would need to just rebuild 1 rifleman, but maybe also not necessarily, but sadly like this, I will stay with an empty yellow bank. So I will take the rockets, first of all as a tech for spaceflight, but also in order to threaten the modern army tactic that I actually have in hand now. But I probably would have also taken it without having it in hand, just to threaten it. I will take the endowment, as that might give me 6 additional culture, the modern infantry, the revolutionary idea. With that I will be able to go for all of those 3 technologies that I have in hand now. And then I will play the revolutionary idea, go for the military theory, getting a bit stronger, and build 1 step of the spaceflight, and I will have 24 resources, which is enough to build 2 rockets and an Air Force, and with that I will be able to threaten a lot of strength, more than Eske and ciufile, and moemoe maybe has also good reasons to attack them, so that he steals some culture from them, has good chances to be before them in the standings. So my hope was now that moemoe will get a very big war going, and that the target of the war maybe will then will lose a lot of culture. I will get a spaceflight, the endowment, maybe can hope that there's a good impact for me in the deck, and that it could be enough to at least finish at the 3rd position. And there will be a war, and moemoe chooses ciufile as the war target. He will go for Air Forces, builds 2 of them, has the positional army tactic, the additional military action from the Silk Road with the patriotism comes in very clutch now, and he will go for some upgrades to farms and arenas to not have famine, and to even go up to 105 strength, will then take the fundamentalism and the multimedia in hand. And I think ciufile is a wise target. He doesn't have Air Forces, and while he could defend, his fast food chains one is actually very big, and as he maybe doesn't have good chances to finish before moemoe anyway, moemoe does have maybe the rightful hope that ciufile will actually not invest anything into defending, which will also be happening. Will only be building this knight, and then will finish the fast food chains. An interesting line, because he invested 3 resources into the H1 theater, and also he has still 3 resources remaining, so if he wouldn't have built this theater and maybe destroyed something instead, I think he could have at least built, actually it would have, if he had 3 resources no, I think he could have built a cannon instead of the knight, but he couldn't, he was missing 1 resource in order to build another cannon to fulfill the tactic again with Marlene and finish the fast food chains. So yeah, that wasn't possible. Then building the theater should be best. Still an interesting decision to build a knight. He could have built a cannon instead, which is a very big indicator that the impact of variety is in the deck, because otherwise he could have just gotten a 1 safe culture, 2 culture swing against moemoe, a +1 for competition. Now he gets +2 for variety. Maybe he also just thinks it's the better preparation for impacts, or he expects the impact of variety to be seeded, but I saw it as an indicator that maybe he himself has pushed that impact into the deck. Also, he finished the fast food chains for 30 points, and it's a very big amount for the fast food chains, not something you see every day, that it has a 3 as the first number. Eske will seed. The politics of strength is revealed. ciufile will lose some more culture. At this point, ciufile is the player that I maybe have the biggest hopes to finish before, as he will now lose quite a bunch of culture. He finished also the fast food chains for a lot, but he will now lose 60 culture to the war. Sadly, even with that, he will go into the final standings with a bit of a lead before me, but I will also get a respectable amount of strength, culture now with spaceflight endowments, so let's see if maybe I at least can get a third place out of this game. Eske just does some impact preparation, goes for a lot of farms, which could be an indicator for impact of agriculture, not impact of balance, as that is not that great for him. I can't really use my politics phase. I could have used it to play an aggression against ciufile, but there's just no point. He can defend anyway, and he can't defend against moemoe anyway, so no need to waste some time with playing this aggression. I then play the endowment for the arts for 6 culture. I can develop all the technologies that I have in hand. I can finish the space flight actually for 35 culture, very big space flight. And with that, after my turn, I will actually, but first of all, I will even build a bit more stuff. I will build a religion, as I thought a ciufile building a knight was a big sign towards impact of variety. It gives me 1 culture reduction. I could have built a team sports also, but with not investing 5 resources, I have 2 resources left, which I can use to build this farm, as I think that Eske going for those farms was a big indicator for the impact of agriculture, so I can prepare for those impacts. Sadly, with destroying those 2 units, I only have 5 left, so it's not possible for me to get a 24 harmony. 20 is the most I can do, and yeah, but that is how I will play the turn. I'm at 159, and ciufile will now lose 60 culture, will then be at 168, so he's definitely in striking distance for me, but I need to be a bit lucky because the 1 impact that I've seeded is actually beneficial for ciufile, so I really need to hope that maybe Eske has pushed the impact of progress, maybe even someone pushed the impact of tech. That would be the jackpot, because I have actually 6 technologies more than ciufile, so that would give me plus 24 against him. Moemoe will steal 60 culture from ciufile. Now he is at 209. Seeds opens the impact of wonders. That sadly is not a nice impact for myself. I have only 2 wonders, one of them of rage 3, so I only get 7 points out of that impact. But I am also not that great prepared for impacts. I just really need to hope that some of those really beneficial ones that could be in the deck are seeded by, or have been seeded by one of my opponents. Moemoe goes for 2 movies, copies the entrenchments tactic to still stay the strongest, and then it's the end of his turn. And before going into the final impacts, Moemoe has now a very big lead, so that a very big war really put him in a position where he is now very likely to win the game. Eske might be likely to finish in second. ciufile is quite a bit behind Eske, and also 16 culture before me. I just need to be a bit lucky now, and maybe hoping that someone seeded impact of tech. Then I could have some hopes, otherwise it could be a bit difficult. And then we have the first impact. The impact of competition, that's a very big one for Moemoe, plus 31. For the other ones, it's relatively equal. I don't catch up to ciufile, but at least I also don't fall behind. The impact of harmony is revealed, which sadly is better for the 1 player that I'm now mainly competing against. Plus 4 for ciufile against me, meaning I'm now 20 culture behind him. There is the impact of agriculture that I rightly called. That sadly gives ciufile plus 1 against me, but still important that I build this farm. There's the impact of balance. Maybe that was seeded by ciufile, who gets plus 16. I at least get plus 12, but I'm falling even more behind. So now we really need to see something like impact of tech and impact of progress. There's the impact of architecture, a very strong one for Moemoe, plus 21. Also actually a fine one for ciufile, and as you can see, my hopes in order to catch up for ciufile are almost done now, or maybe even completely done. But ciufile has catched up to Eske quite a bit. Will maybe Eske at the end get punished for his United Nations impact of culture reveal? We will see. It's the impact of strength, that's plus 15 for Moemoe, plus 10 for Eske, plus 5 for ciufile, plus 0 for me. And with that at the end, Eske stays at the second position. He didn't get punished for his United Nations reveal. And yeah, Moemoe finishes the game. Congratulations to him, quite a big amount of culture at the end. He got actually hit by a raid, a terrorism during H2, but I do think James Watt really was very strong for him in this game, building some economy up very efficiently, and also getting this oil. And preparing very nicely for a big war, which maybe ciufile could have prepared for a little bit better, playing it a little bit less greedily. Who knows if it would have made a difference, maybe without getting air forces. He could have been hit anyway, but definitely could have been that he would have been at least a little bit safer if he wouldn't have built a journalism and would have taken a military build-up. And no, for me, sadly, really not a great game. After getting hit by those war, was always in a position where I thought, I just have the worst position, I need to take some risk, I somehow need to get back into the game. And I actually got somehow nicely back into the game. I got Pierre, I got this very big space flight, and maybe if I would have been a bit lucky with my impact draws, I got an impact of progress and tech, there could have been something possible. I could have gotten maybe a bit closer to my opponents, maybe overtaken ciufile, whose impact of tech is really not that great. So there could have been something possible. But sadly I only got the impact of harmony, which was not really that great for me. And yeah, the main problem for me in this game was of course that I got hit by those two wars, which really cost. First of all, I needed to focus on some turns just to defend, and then I still lost a total of 3 yellow tokens, which was a little bit unfortunate. ciufile got 2 wars over territories in the first 4 draws. Bit unfortunate that early in the game it's not really easy to face against a player who has 20 strength, but I could have maybe still played this one turn where I went for the 2 food upgrades, a bit less greedy. Maybe I could have taken a knight, maybe I could have been in a situation where I could have at least threatened a little bit more strength, and maybe then ciufile would have chosen another player to go for the war against, maybe Eske, who had only 4 signs at this point. So of course I could complain a little bit about bad luck, but I think it's more important to take some things away that I could have done differently, because I don't have control of how lucky I am or not, but I have control on how nicely I prepare for different scenarios. And here I think I was a little bit too greedy and got sadly quite heavily punished for it. Who knows if my position would have been even strong enough without getting punished, but I think this empty yellow bank at the end was definitely a bit of a burden. Maybe it could have been a bit easier to play with more yellow tokens, of course. And no, but nonetheless an interesting game. ciufile went for a very interesting and strong Acropolis game with Bach. At the end maybe was a bit too greedy, otherwise he could have had chances to win. Eske with the H1 economy that at the end also worked out quite nicely, and moemoe with the big watt production, and which allowed him to win at the end. So no, nonetheless I hope it was an interesting game for you to watch, and now we have to take a look at the standings and see how my chances are in those standings and how the situation is looking. And of course I would have hoped for a different start than the start that we are seeing now. After the 2 4-player games I have only 1 single point, and I'm already 10 points behind Eske. At least all of my opponents have 1 game finished already more than I have, but I have a lot of points to catch up. If I manage to win all of the games, I think I still have it in my own hands, I think. Or do I? Let's say I win all games against Eske, I gain enough points against him that I have it in my own hands. So I still have it in my own hands, but of course those players are some tough competition. It's definitely not easy winning all of the games, especially with the 3-player games where you have 2 opponents. So now I really have to show off some great results, otherwise the World Championship journey might end very early for me this year, which I would of course be a bit disappointed about, but at the moment I still have hopes left. I need to get some good results going. I saw in some other groups from the stages before, there were some groups where a player maybe started with even 2 losses in the 4-player game, still managed to win the group at the end, so it's possible to make a comeback. I still need to be confident in my abilities, not be frustrated, concentrate in the games, and just try to get the best results going as possible. Alright, and then I hope you're looking forward to the coming games. I hope you wishing me a little bit of luck. And yeah, then I hope it was an interesting game for you to watch, and thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.